Welcome to our journey into the eerie past, where ancient monsters lurk in the shadows of history. From terrifying beasts that once roamed the earth to creatures of myth and legend, these primal horrors have haunted humanity for centuries. In this video, we'll uncover the stories of the monstrous beings that still stir fear in our deepest nightmares. Whether they're colossal sea creatures, winged demons, or shape-shifting terrors, these ancient entities have left a chilling mark on folklore and our collective imagination. Get ready to face the monsters that still haunt our darkest dreams. Let's dive in. Typhon, the father of all monsters. In the vast pantheon of Greek mythology, few creatures inspire as much terror as Typhon. Described as the most formidable monster to ever exist, Typhon was a massive, serpentine beast whose power rivaled that of the gods themselves. His very presence was enough to send Olympus into a frenzy, and his battle with Zeus remains one of the most legendary clashes in mythological history. To fully appreciate the horror and grandeur of Typhon, one must delve into his origins, his terrifying description, and the climactic confrontation that almost toppled the king of the gods. Origins of Typhon. Typhon was the offspring of Gaia, the primordial goddess of the earth, and Tartarus, the dark abyss beneath the underworld. Some myths suggest that Gaia birthed Typhon in response to Zeus's defeat of the Titans, seeking revenge for the downfall of her children. In other versions, Typhon was the child of Gaia and Erebus, the primordial darkness, further cementing his status as a force of chaos. From birth, Typhon was destined for destruction. Unlike the Titans, who had an air of nobility and order to their rebellion against Zeus, Typhon was pure, undiluted chaos. He was not a being seeking justice or dominion, he was a storm of devastation, embodying the very concept of anarchy. His role in mythology is that of the ultimate adversary, one who challenges the gods in a bid to overthrow the established cosmic order. The monstrous form of Typhon. Typhon's appearance was the stuff of nightmares. Ancient poets and storytellers described him as a monstrous entity, standing taller than the highest mountains, his head scraping the very stars. His lower half was composed entirely of gigantic, coiling serpents, each writhing and striking like a mass of living whips. His upper body was vaguely humanoid but grotesquely distorted, with arms so vast they could stretch across entire continents. The most horrifying aspect of Typhon, however, was his heads, hundreds of them, each resembling a dragon or serpent. Every head spoke a different language, babbling and shrieking in an incomprehensible cacophony that could drive mortals to madness. These heads were not just for show, they could spew fire, venom, and storms, making Typhon an unstoppable force of nature. His eyes burned with a fiery glow, and his breath alone could set entire forests ablaze. In some accounts, he also had vast wings, large enough to blot out the sun when unfurled. His mere presence could summon storms, and wherever he went, destruction followed. It is no wonder that the Olympian gods, beings of immense power themselves, were utterly terrified of him. The war against Zeus. The climactic confrontation between Typhon and Zeus is one of the greatest battles in Greek mythology. It was not a mere skirmish but a war of cosmic proportions, with the fate of Olympus hanging in the balance. When Typhon rose from the depths of the earth, the gods were so stricken with fear that they fled. According to some accounts, they even transformed into animals to escape his wrath, with Apollo becoming a hawk and Hermes turning into an ibis. Only Zeus, the ruler of Olympus, stood his ground, unwilling to let chaos reign. Their battle shook the very foundations of the world. Zeus hurled bolt after bolt of lightning, each one striking Typhon with the force of a collapsing star. But Typhon was not easily defeated. He retaliated with storms of fire and wind, his many heads screeching and spitting venom. The sky darkened as the two forces clashed, their conflict sending shockwaves across the cosmos. At one point, Typhon gained the upper hand. He managed to wrestle Zeus's thunderbolts away from him, cutting the god's tendons and leaving him incapacitated. With Zeus weakened, Typhon carried him to a distant cave, intending to imprison him forever. But the clever Hermes, god of cunning and wit, managed to steal back Zeus's tendons and restore his strength. Reinvigorated, Zeus resumed his assault, raining down a fury of lightning upon Typhon. Finally, after a battle that raged across the heavens and earth, Zeus delivered a final, devastating strike. Typhon, unable to withstand the god's relentless power, was cast down and buried beneath Mount Etna in Sicily. The mountain, still an active volcano today, was said to rumble and spew fire whenever Typhon stirred beneath its depths, forever trapped but never truly defeated. Typhon's legacy. Though Zeus ultimately triumphed, Typhon left an indelible mark on Greek mythology. He was not just a monster but a symbol of chaos, a force that even the gods struggled to contain. His story represents the eternal struggle between order and disorder, a theme that resonates across cultures and time periods. Many later myths would continue to reference Typhon. Some legends claim that his offspring included a host of infamous monsters, such as Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld, the Hydra, whose heads multiplied when severed, and the Chimera, a fire-breathing beast with the body of a lion, the head of a goat, and a serpent's tail. As the father of all monsters, Typhon's lineage ensured that his legacy of terror endured long after his defeat. Even beyond mythology, Typhon's influence can be seen in natural disasters and phenomena. The ancient Greeks attributed violent storms and volcanic eruptions to his wrath, and his name lives on in words like typhoon, a fitting reminder of his destructive power. Typhon remains one of the most fearsome beings in all of mythology. His sheer size, power, and chaotic nature make him a unique and terrifying figure, one who challenged the gods themselves and nearly won. His story serves as a warning about the ever-present potential for chaos to rise again, even in the face of divine order. Whether viewed as a literal monster or a metaphor for the untamed forces of nature, Typhon's legend endures, as powerful and awe-inspiring as ever. Baba Yaga, Slavic folklore. Baba Yaga is not your typical fairy tale witch. She doesn't merely cackle over a bubbling cauldron or lure children with candy-coated houses. Instead, she flies through the forest in a mortar, steering with a pestle while sweeping away her tracks with a broom. She dwells in a hut that moves on chicken legs, and her role in folklore is as unpredictable as it is eerie. Sometimes, she is a monstrous antagonist who devours the unwary. Other times, she is a grudging helper, offering wisdom and supernatural aid. Her ambiguity and terrifying nature make her one of the most complex figures in Slavic mythology. Origins and folklore appearances. Baba Yaga's roots stretch deep into Slavic folklore. She is an ancient figure whose stories have been passed down through generations, reflecting the fears and wisdom of the cultures that shaped her. Unlike the clear-cut villains of Western fairy tales, Baba Yaga is more than just an evil witch. She is a force of nature, a test of character, and a source of both peril and power. One of the most famous stories featuring Baba Yaga is the tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful. In this story, Vasilisa, mistreated by her cruel stepmother and stepsisters, is sent to Baba Yaga's hut to fetch fire. The old witch gives her seemingly impossible tasks to complete, but with the help of a magical doll given by her late mother, Vasilisa succeeds. Baba Yaga, impressed but suspicious, eventually sends her away with a skull lantern, which later burns her wicked stepfamily to ashes. Here, Baba Yaga is both an obstacle and an agent of justice, punishing the wicked and rewarding the clever. Other stories paint her in a more sinister light. She is often described as a cannibal who preys on lost travelers, a grotesque figure with iron teeth and a bony frame. Sometimes, she has multiple sisters, also named Baba Yaga, reinforcing the idea that she is more of an elemental force than an individual being. The symbolism of her traits. Each of Baba Yaga's characteristics carries deep symbolic meaning. Her flying mortar and pestle, for instance, suggest an ability to move between worlds, earthly and supernatural. The mortar and pestle are tools of transformation, used to grind and mix ingredients. Much like Baba Yaga's role in stories, she breaks down and reshapes those who encounter her, testing their worth. Her chicken-legged hut is one of her most iconic elements. The house can rotate or move through the forest, standing on legs that suggest instability and movement. Some scholars believe this detail has shamanic roots, as structures on stilts were common among nomadic Siberian tribes and were used to keep provisions away from wild animals. The moving hut could also symbolize the shifting, unpredictable nature of the supernatural world. Baba Yaga's ambiguous role, sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful, mirrors the nature of life's trials. She does not simply reward or punish arbitrarily, rather, she reacts to the character and actions of those who approach her. This makes her a gatekeeper figure, one who forces individuals to prove their mettle before granting them wisdom or power. Baba Yaga as a feminine archetype. Baba Yaga's portrayal as a frightening, elderly woman fits into a broader tradition of crone figures in mythology. She embodies the fear of the unknown, the inevitability of aging, and the power of female wisdom. Unlike the passive heroines of many fairy tales, she is active, independent, and authoritative. She represents the wild, untamed aspect of femininity, one that does not conform to societal norms. She does not seek male validation or operate within the domestic sphere. Instead, she controls her own realm and demands respect from those who enter it. In this sense, she challenges traditional gender roles, standing apart from the youthful beauty often glorified in folklore. Baba Yaga in modern culture. Despite her ancient origins, Baba Yaga remains relevant in modern storytelling. She appears in books, movies, and even video games, often as a symbol of eerie wisdom or a chaotic force. Writers and creators have reimagined her in various ways, sometimes leaning into her monstrous aspects and other times emphasizing her role as a mystical guide. For example, in the John Wick films, the protagonist is referred to as Baba Yaga, not in the literal sense but as a reference to his almost supernatural lethality. Though this use of her name is somewhat inaccurate, as the real Baba Yaga is not merely an assassin but a more complex being, it highlights her enduring association with fear and power. In Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, Baba Yaga appears as a formidable and mysterious presence, reflecting her folklore origins. She has also been featured in various fantasy novels, often as a trickster mentor or an unpredictable force whose motives are unclear. Why Baba Yaga remains terrifying? What makes Baba Yaga truly terrifying is her unpredictability. Unlike a conventional villain, she does not always act out of malice. She does not exist solely to be defeated by a hero. Instead, she operates by her own logic, one that does not always align with human morality. She is a test, a guardian of wisdom, and a wielder of both destruction and transformation. Those who encounter her must navigate her challenges carefully, for she can just as easily grant power as she can bring doom. In this way, she embodies the uncertainty of life itself, dangerous, mysterious, and full of potential for those brave enough to face her. Baba Yaga is far more than a creepy old witch. She is a symbol of power, transformation, and the untamed forces of nature. She flies not on a broom, but in a mortar, she wields not a wand, but a pestle, she lives not in a tower, but in a house that moves on chicken legs. She is neither wholly good nor wholly evil, and that is what makes her one of the most fascinating figures in folklore. Her stories continue to captivate us because they tap into something primal, the fear and wonder of the unknown, the tests that shape us, and the unpredictable nature of the world itself. In Baba Yaga, we find not just a monster, but a force to be reckoned with. Cthulhu, modern myth, ancient vibes. When discussing mythology, we often think of ancient tales passed down through generations, stories of gods and monsters that shape the beliefs and cultures of long-lost civilizations. Yet mythology is not a relic of the past, it evolves. Some of the most terrifying modern myths arise not from ancient oral traditions but from the written words of authors who tap into primal fears. Among them, H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu stands as one of the most recognizable and enduring figures, a monstrous entity embodying the very essence of cosmic horror. The birth of Cthulhu, Lovecraft's vision. H.P. Lovecraft, an American writer of weird fiction, introduced Cthulhu in his short story, The Call of Cthulhu, published in 1928 in Weird Tales. Unlike classical mythological beings, Cthulhu was not part of an existing pantheon but rather a wholly original creation. Nevertheless, Lovecraft drew inspiration from real-world myths, folklore, and his own dreams to craft a being that instills existential dread in those who encounter it. Cthulhu is described as an immense, tentacled entity, vaguely humanoid but with grotesque features, a head resembling an octopus, a rubbery, alien form, and vast wings. It sleeps in the submerged city of R'lyeh, hidden deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, awaiting the time when it will rise again. Its very presence can drive mortals insane, a testament to the overpowering horror it represents. Cosmic horror, fear of the unknown. Unlike traditional mythological monsters that can be slain or gods that can be appeased, Cthulhu and the beings of the Lovecraftian mythos are beyond human comprehension. They do not operate by human morals or motivations. they are ancient, indifferent, and utterly alien. This is a core principle of cosmic horror, the fear of the unknown and the insignificance of humanity in the face of a vast and uncaring universe. While Greek or Norse gods might intervene in human affairs for love, vengeance, or amusement, Cthulhu is largely indifferent to humanity. The mere knowledge of its existence is enough to drive people mad. This idea, of forbidden knowledge leading to insanity, is a key theme in Lovecraft's work. The human mind, according to Lovecraft, is simply incapable of grasping the true nature of the cosmos without suffering a complete psychological breakdown. Cthulhu in modern mythology. Cthulhu may not be ancient, but it has taken on the characteristics of mythology in modern times. It has inspired countless adaptations, interpretations, and an ever-expanding fictional universe often referred to as the Cthulhu mythos. Unlike a traditional mythos, which develops organically over centuries, the Cthulhu mythos began with Lovecraft and was expanded by other writers, both during his lifetime and long after his death. Lovecraft encouraged other writers to build upon his universe, creating interconnected stories and expanding the lore. Writers such as August Derleth and Ramsey Campbell contributed new creatures, gods, and forbidden tomes, further solidifying Cthulhu's place in literary horror. Today, Cthulhu and the Lovecraftian pantheon appear in movies, video games, tabletop RPGs like Call of Cthulhu, and even humorous internet memes. The cultural impact of Cthulhu. Cthulhu's reach extends beyond literature. The imagery of a vast, tentacled god sleeping beneath the ocean resonates deeply with modern fears. In an age of climate change, deep-sea exploration, and scientific discoveries revealing the vast, unknowable nature of the universe, Cthulhu symbolizes both the horror of the unknown and humanity's powerlessness against forces beyond our control. The character has also become a paradoxical pop culture icon. While Lovecraft's original stories paint Cthulhu as an eldritch horror, modern media often portray it in a humorous or even adorable light. From plush toys to internet jokes, Cthulhu has become a figure that is as amusing as it is terrifying. This blend of horror and humor only adds to its mythic status, showing how powerful narratives evolve over time. Why Cthulhu endures. Despite being less than a century old, Cthulhu has taken on a life of its own, much like the gods and monsters of ancient mythology. This is because the themes it represents, insignificance, existential dread, and fear of the unknown, are timeless. Cthulhu's endurance in popular culture is proof that mythology does not have to be ancient to be effective. Just as the ancient Greeks told tales of the Titan Kronos devouring his children or the Norse spoke of the Midgard serpent encircling the world, today's audiences are captivated by the thought of Cthulhu stirring in the depths, waiting to awaken. While Cthulhu may not be an ancient deity in the traditional sense, its impact on culture and its role in modern storytelling make it a true myth of the contemporary age, one that will likely continue to haunt and fascinate us for generations to come. Ammit, Egyptian mythology. Ammit, the ancient Egyptian deity, was known as the Devourer of the Dead, a terrifying figure in the realm of Egyptian afterlife beliefs. She was a hybrid creature composed of three of Egypt's most formidable and dangerous animals, the lion, the hippopotamus, and the crocodile. Each of these animals symbolized different aspects of destruction and terror in the Egyptian imagination, and together, they formed a being of both physical and symbolic fear. The role of Ammit in Egyptian mythology was crucial, as she was not just a representation of the destructive forces in nature but also the ultimate enforcer of cosmic order. The Judgment of the Dead. In ancient Egyptian culture, the afterlife was an important and deeply woven aspect of the religion and cosmology. The ancient Egyptians believed that after death, the soul would undergo a judgment process, where the deceased's heart, considered the seat of one's soul and moral character, was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, balance, and order. This judgment took place in the Hall of Two Truths, overseen by Osiris, the god of the dead, and his divine entourage. The heart of the deceased would be placed on one side of a scale, while the feather of Ma'at would rest on the other. The goal was to see if the heart was lighter than the feather, which symbolized purity and moral righteousness. If the heart passed this test, the soul would be granted access to the afterlife, a paradise-like field called the Field of Reeds, where the deceased could live in peace and harmony for eternity. However, if the heart failed the test, if it was heavier with the weight of sin, the soul faced a terrifying consequence: it would be devoured by Ammit. Amit's role and symbolism. Amit's role was not one of active malice but one of cosmic justice. She was the enforcer of the judgment process. Her presence in the afterlife mythos was not to deliver arbitrary punishment but to ensure that those who were unworthy did not disrupt the harmony of the universe by entering the afterlife. In this sense, Amit served a divine function, preventing the corrupt or immoral from tainting the order of the afterlife. The act of devouring the heart of a failed soul ensured that it could never be reborn or reach the afterlife. Instead of suffering in eternal torment like the Christian concept of hell, the soul was condemned to eternal oblivion, which the ancient Egyptians viewed as a fate far worse than any form of eternal punishment. In Egyptian mythology, the concept of oblivion was considered the most feared of all outcomes. This oblivion was not merely a lack of existence, but the complete erasure of the soul from the universe. A soul that was devoured by Amit would cease to exist in any form. It would not be able to enter the afterlife, nor would it find peace in the world of the living. This fate was a form of utter destruction, an irreversible cessation of identity and essence. Amit herself was a grotesque and fearsome figure. She was depicted as a creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. These three animals were not chosen arbitrarily, they were each emblematic of fearsome qualities that the Egyptians associated with destruction and chaos. The lion represented strength and aggression, the hippopotamus was associated with unpredictability and the potential for violent outbursts, and the crocodile symbolized the dangers lurking in the waters, always poised to strike. Why oblivion was worse than hell? The fear of oblivion in ancient Egyptian culture was profound, as it was closely linked to the soul's immortality. The Egyptians believed that the soul, or Ba, could continue to exist after death, and it was essential that the Ba could pass into the afterlife. The concept of oblivion, however, meant that the Ba would cease to exist altogether, an eternal erasure from the cosmic cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This was not a form of punishment or suffering but an annihilation of the very essence of the individual, a fate worse than suffering or pain. The concept of hell, as seen in other religious traditions, does not directly correlate with the Egyptian view of Amit's judgment. While other cultures often envisioned a hellish underworld where souls faced torment for their sins, the Egyptian afterlife was much more focused on the preservation and continuity of the soul. The idea of oblivion, in this sense, was the ultimate terror. For the ancient Egyptians, the soul's continuity was paramount, and even a bad afterlife, where a soul might suffer in some form, was preferable to the complete dissolution of one's existence. In this context, Amit was not just a monster to fear, but a cosmic figure who ensured that the universe remained in balance. The souls that failed to pass the judgment test were not condemned to an eternity of suffering but to the complete annihilation of their existence. The image of Amit devouring the heart was therefore not one of mere violence, it was a form of cosmic justice that erased the unworthy from existence forever. Amit's presence in Egyptian art and mythology. Amit's terrifying appearance and role in the afterlife judgment process made her a popular subject in Egyptian art and funerary texts. She often appeared in the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and incantations intended to guide the deceased through the afterlife. In many depictions, Amit was shown in the act of devouring the heart of a soul whose judgment had failed. This was usually accompanied by images of the heart being weighed on a scale, with the deceased soul standing before the gods, awaiting their fate. In some portrayals, Amit was depicted as a composite of the three animals, crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus, while in others, she was shown in a more hybrid form, emphasizing her role as an agent of destruction and cosmic balance. Her grotesque, terrifying image was designed to instill fear, as a reminder of the consequences of living an immoral life. Her role was especially important in the context of the Egyptian belief in Ma'at, which governed not only the physical universe but also the moral and social order. Ma'at represented truth, balance, and justice, and it was believed that living in accordance with these principles was essential for maintaining the stability of both the world and the afterlife. Amit, as an enforcer of Ma'at's laws, ensured that only those who lived virtuous lives could pass into the next world, while those who had violated the cosmic order were obliterated from existence. Amit's hybrid nature and its meaning. The hybrid nature of Amit, being part lion, part hippopotamus, and part crocodile, was significant in itself. Each animal she was composed of had its own symbolic meaning in ancient Egyptian culture. The lion, as a predator and a symbol of power, represented strength and the ability to overcome obstacles. The hippopotamus, on the other hand, was a creature that symbolized chaos and destruction, especially since it was known to be a dangerous animal in the Nile's waters. The crocodile, often associated with the underworld, represented the dangers of the river and the unknown, symbolizing the threat of death and the unknown realms. By combining these three animals, Ammit became a symbol of the ultimate destructive force, an agent of annihilation who could not only destroy life but also erase the very essence of a soul. Her hybrid nature was not just a matter of physical composition but also a reflection of the complex and often contradictory forces that governed life and death in Egyptian thought. She embodied the unpredictable and uncontrollable forces of nature, which were also seen as necessary to maintain balance in the world. The fate of the soul, eternal oblivion. When a soul failed the judgment test, Ammit would devour its heart, and the consequences were dire. The soul would not be subjected to eternal suffering, as in the Christian concept of hell. Instead, it would be condemned to an irreversible oblivion. This was the worst fate one could face in the afterlife. It was not just the cessation of life, it was the complete erasure of identity, the loss of all potential for rebirth or continuation in any form. The soul would no longer exist in any sense. This idea of oblivion was central to Egyptian cosmology. To cease to exist was considered far worse than any form of eternal suffering. The ancient Egyptians viewed the afterlife as a continuation of life, albeit in a different form. To lose that continuation was to lose everything. In this way, Ammit's role as the devourer of the dead was not just one of terror, it was a reminder of the importance of living a life in accordance with the principles of Ma'at, the cosmic order that governed both the living world and the afterlife. Ammit, the devourer of the dead, was a fearsome deity in ancient Egyptian mythology. As a hybrid creature composed of a lion, hippopotamus, and crocodile, she symbolized the destructive forces of nature and the ultimate enforcer of divine judgment. Her role in the afterlife was crucial, ensuring that only those who had lived virtuous lives were allowed to enter the afterlife, while those who failed the judgment test were condemned to eternal oblivion. This fate was far worse than any form of torment or punishment, as it meant the complete and utter annihilation of the soul's existence. Ammit's terrifying figure reminded the ancient Egyptians of the importance of moral integrity and the consequences of disrupting the cosmic order. Thanks for joining us on this spine-chilling journey into the world of ancient monsters. We hope these legendary creatures have left you with more questions than answers and maybe even a few nightmares. From the terrifying to the bizarre, these beasts continue to haunt our imaginations and folklore. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadows of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more creepy content. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Are there any monsters you'd like to see featured? Until next time, keep the lights on and your dreams a little brighter.